Counting can be quite fun. You can count down to your birthday. You can count your money. You can count sheep. You can count sweets. But you know what makes it really fun? If you put the items in a jar. In the jar allows users to decide what goes in the jar, and then players can guess. Part of the Lesson More with Fusion series. Free apps and games made with ClickTeam Fusion to help you engage people in your teaching or groups. Visit impactgamers.net/lesson to download now. To download for free now.
Hey there, welcome to another Lesson More with Fusion. I am TJ from Impact Gamers, and today we're going to be showing you through the jar game, which is for estimations. So it's a little game you can play with your class, and yeah, it's about estimating how many of a certain object there is. So if you click here, you can actually change the image. I click on the image, it will let me change the image, and it will also let me change the other image. So I've got some gold bars and some rocks. Now I can set how many objects are going to be in the jar. So up to 10, 25, 50, 100. I'm going to say 50. So objects will spawn in, and up here you'll be asked a question. How many of the gold bar objects do I think's in a jar? Now the point of this is not to count them, it's to give an estimate. So maybe your teacher will give you a countdown, or maybe you'll just have to guess from where you're sat, so you can't like come to the front and count them. Now there's two ways to answer. You can either type in using the keyboard, so I'm just going to guess here at 35, and I'm going to press enter. Now it will say here, I'm more than 10 away. I need to be lower. So I'm going to say 22. This time though, I'm actually going to click here, so you can use this on a touchscreen device if you're not using it with mouse and keyboard. So I need to be higher now, but I'm nearly there. So I'm going to, again, you can use this as a touchpad if you're not using mouse and keyboard. I'm going to say 24. Lower, so it must be 23. And there we go. Now, if you've got to that point, maybe a teacher is going to say, oh, I only want you to have 3 guesses, and then we're going to reveal it. You just click here and it will show you the answer. So let's say we just have a random guess, and then after a couple of attempts you want to reveal the answer, you just click here. And there we are. That is it. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that you get some fun out of this and it helps you with your estimations. I've been TJ from Impact Gamers, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.
This next section is how to use ClickTeam Fusion. This next section.
Hey there, this is TJ from Impact Gamers, and today we're going to be showing you how to make a guessing game. So this is just going to be the simple concept of a jar, and it's going to fill it with sweets, and you have to guess how many's in the jar. So I'm going to give you a really quick overview of how it will work. So it will randomly generate sweets in the jar, and then you just want to type in your guess. So we're going to go, is it 150? You press enter and it will tell you if you're right or wrong, but it will also give you a little hint on whether you need to be higher or lower. So I know I need to be lower here, so we're going to try 130, and now I know I need to be higher, so I'm going to say 140. And you're going to keep narrowing it down until you get the right answer, and then when you get the right answer it will say correct and it will restart the game for you. So it's a fun little game just to guess how many's in, and if you were really stuck or you want to give the class or your friends a certain amount of answers, then maybe after 3 you would just say, okay, show answer, and it will tell you. And then again, it will restart. So now we're going to show you how to make it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is start a new application. So File and New. And we're going to go into our frame editor here. And I'm just going to make the size of the application. So I'm going to on application, so it will be the screen size as well. And I'm just going to make this 720 and press OK. And then we're going to start building how it looks. So all I'm going to do for this, you don't even have to add a background to the game at all, but we are going to add one really quick. And I'm adding a quick backdrop, and I'm just going to keep it a solid color. You can change this, you can make it look however you want, but I'm just going to make it like this. Now you can actually just change the background color of the screen, but in case I want to add some patterns later, I'd switch it to motif, and then I would do the pattern a little differently instead, like so. And then if I want to change it, it just means it's a lot easier to do, but none of this is super important, and you just can make a little pattern. Next, what we need to do is add the jar itself. So the jar is just going to be an active object. Now I have already found my jar. I found it on Pixabay, which is the website we commonly use on these videos. I'm going to go to my assets, and I'm just going to open up the jar, and there we go. So it's a transparent image, and that's quite important. And then I'm just adjusting it. I can probably make it a little bigger actually. There we go. So we have our jar object. Now we do indeed need 2 other objects in order to create the sweets. So we are going to have a spawn object, which doesn't matter how it looks because we're actually going to make that invisible. And then we need the sweets themselves. And I am going to really quickly draw these sweets. So we're just going to have, and then press plus twice on here. And I'm going to pick 2 different colors. And we'll have a nice red sweet. There we go. And you want to make sure speed is set to 0 and that it doesn't loop. And then I'm going to rename this to sweet. And you can press F2 to rename quick, or you can right click and go to rename, or you can go to the properties window and rename. It doesn't really matter. There's a few ways to do it. So we have our spawner, we have our sweet, but we do indeed need another object. Now this is going to become the edge of where we don't want to leave. There would be a few ways of doing it because it spawns inside here. When it hits the edge, it should keep them inside, but another way of doing it as well is you can create yourself a barrier. Obviously you might not want a jar, so I'm going to show you this way around. Now to quickly do this, you can press the paint or the brush tool, the paint mode tool, and then click on the object you want. And I'm just going to give a quick rough outline of the jar, like so. And again, right click to get rid of that. You want to make sure these are not going to be visible at start. You don't want these to be visible. So we've got a barrier, we have our spawner, and we have our sweets. Now for the actual interface of the game, we do need to add a few other objects. We're going to have our indicator, so this is going to be showing us whether it's higher or lower. So I'm just going to call it high-low because that's what its purpose is going to be. And again, we're going to try and do this really quickly. There we go. And we need to paint it, set tolerance quite high, have a nice green color indicating that way, and then plus is gonna be flipped upside down, and it's going to be painted red. So that's just a really quick way of doing it. Now make sure, again, speed is 0 and it's not on loop. That's very important. So we've got high and low, which it's up to you kind of where you want to put these. But for now, we are going to have to add some string objects. Now you want one string, which is just going to be more of your explanation. So this is just going to be to say to the player, press enter. And this is just so they know to press enter in terms of after they've entered the number, like for guessing. And then we need some more string, but this one's going to be used for in its paragraphs. So we're not actually going to have, so we're not actually going to have, like it usually is, we're going to have a few different paragraphs. So paragraph 1 is going to be called guess, because that's what they'll be doing. And then we're going to have, we'll have right or correct. And then we're going to have one called wrong. There we go. So instead of us having 3 different pieces of text, we're actually going to have just one, but it will change depending on what has happened. So we've got this. We've got to press enter. I'm just going to change the size a little bit, like so. There we go. So these are more for instructions, but we do need another object now. So we need the object which is going to be where we type in our numbers, our guesses, and we also want it to focus on this item. So we're going to have a edit box, and we're just going to place that in here for now. And we probably want these two quite close together, like so. And we can arrange these as we go, like so. And we also want to add another counter. So there we go. So we need a counter which is going to be our last guess, just so we can see on screen that if it's higher or lower to what number. So we want this to be visible to the players. So these two can go together. This will indicate whether it's right or wrong. This indicates whether it needs to be higher or lower, like so. And then down here is to actually type in our answer. Again, you can move this around however you like. So we're nearly there. We just need to have a few things added in before we start with our coding. So first thing is make sure we rename everything. So this is going to be guess, and this is just a reference for us so we know. Press enter. Now we are going to have added the ability to see the answer in case that's what you want to be able to do. So to do that, all we're going to do is add a button like so, and this is going to be a green button, and we need some text as well. So I'm going to go back to text and grab some more string, and this string is simply going to say show answer. Increase the size of the text a little bit, just so we're going to see it easier, and then increase the text box size like so. And that's it. So we have the ability to see the answer if we really want. Obviously you can neaten this stuff up as well, you don't have to leave it as messy as I have. But now we are going to start with our coding just after we rename this to show, and the button needs to be button, just so we know what it is, or so someone else knows what it is in case you're working with someone else. And also rename your jar. There we go. Right, and to the event editor. So now we're inside the event editor, we're going to start doing our coding. Now there are quite a few different things we will need to do, but it's not too much code. So the first thing being is going to be an always rule. And now that's because we always want the focus to be on the edit box. So we're going to go, to control, and we're going to go to focus and turn it on. So that just means the user doesn't have to use their mouse to click on this every time. Every time they go into the game, it will automatically focus, so they can just type. Now the second thing we need to do is at the start of our frame, we're going to start the loop. So this is going to be what we use to create the sweets. So we're going to start our loop, and we're going to start the loop make, which we haven't actually made yet, but we are going to. And we're going to set this to run between 20 and 200 times. And now, of course, we do need to actually make the event. So we're going to say on loop make, and you've got to type it in the exact same as you did. It's going to create an object, and it's going to create our sweet, and it's going to create our sweet relative next to the spawner which we created. Now all we've done is say on this loop, which the loop will create one, but we're going to run it a random amount of times, anywhere between 20 and 200. So that's how the sweets are created. Now, so they don't leave the jar, we're going to say if our sweets collide with another object, being the barrier, they will stop. Now the only thing we need to do is quickly make it so our sweets are physics static movement. So make sure you have put this in. It needs to be physics static movement, and you need to have inserted a physics engine. And all you do to do that is go to insert object physics and grab the physics engine. I like to place mine here in the grey area because it means it's not going to be in the way, and you can't see this in the game anyway. So make sure you have them two things in, and that allows us then to go to movement and stop. And because it's physics, it means they'll like fall to the bottom of the jar. And there you go. So you don't have to manually place or worry about anything like that. It will just make sure they all fall to the bottom. But they'll also need to make sure that they don't collide with each other. So you can have done this as a group, but I'm showing you the long way around. You want to go to collisions with another object and make sure if they collide with themselves, it's going to be the exact same thing, movement stop. Now you can just put these two into a group and have it where if any of them hit each other. So that is another quick way of doing it, but that is the slightly longer way of doing it. So barrier and sweet, make sure they collide with each other. Now we need to make sure the player can reveal the answer. So we're just going to say if the user clicks and insert, the user's mouse is over an object, being the button. There we go. This is how we're going to get our answer, and we do this because it's more accurate. Instead of clicking on the text, if they click and they're over the button instead, that's what's going to trigger it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure that inside the text box, the one we type in, the answer is going to appear. So we're going to editing, and then set the text, and we're going to set it as string, and the string is going to be the count of whatever the number of objects of the sweets are. Now when this happens, we are going to want to reset it because we've already given them the answer. So after 3 seconds, I'm going to say that it's going to reset. There we go. Now we need to tell the computer what reset is. So on reset, it is going to restart the current frame, and that's just so that they've got the answer. It will reset and it will do all this again and generate them a new amount to guess. So what we need to do now is we need to start gauging whether the player has guessed higher or lower than what the actual answer is. So the way we do that is we're going to compare two general values, and we're going to have a little equation here. So what we need to say is the amount of sweets, so we need to count the number of objects, minus the value of which is written inside the box, and then check if it is greater to 0. So, however many sweets are on screen, minus what we've guessed. If it is greater than 0, the difference, then that means we need to have a higher guess. Now we need to do that again, but this time the other way around. So we're going to say compare two general values, and we're going to say count these again, but this time it will be lower. So we're still going to minus our guess, which is in here. We're going to just grab the value. So value meaning it's taking the numbers of what we've written. But this time we need to say lower than 0. Press OK. Now these are indicating whether it's higher or lower, but it's only going to trigger when we press the enter button, because that's what we've decided is going to be our button for deciding. So it won't just trigger when it's typed in. We only want it to trigger this when the player presses enter. So we need this one. So this would be frame, its first frame. We want it to reappear. So visibility, reappear. We also want it on this one. There we go. And at the beginning, it will start off invisible. There we go. So it will reappear, and it also needs to have its frame forced into whichever one we need. So if it needs to be higher as the indicator, animation frame, and it starts on 0, so we're going to say 0. For this one though, because this one needs to indicate if it's lower, so that's the second frame, animation frame 1, because it starts at 0. So the next one on is our lower indicator. But now we need to say if it's correct. So again, we're going to compare two values, but this time we're going to say equals. So we're going to count these again, count the number of objects, minus the value of what we have typed in this box, get text. And if it equals 0, then we have guessed correct. So this is where we can start to have in that we've won. So the text box here will also, sorry, not that one. This one needs to change as well. Its paragraph needs to change. So we can set its paragraph to wrong. And it needs to be wrong for both of these. These two both are wrong answers. But it will start off, so start of frame, we can have it set paragraph to guess. That's how we want it. But for this one, if we guess correctly, it is going to say set paragraph, correct. Now, if we guess this correct, we can actually just use the reset event that we've already made just to save time. So we want to trigger after 3 seconds again. Reset. Like so. Okay, so we've now made the code we need for our guesses and whether it's indicating we need to be higher or lower. Now, just to finish off, we also need to make sure that it's going to be invisible if we guess it right, because we don't need the indicator anymore. And when we create them, we're also going to force their animation frame. So change animation frame, and we want it to be between random between 3. So that means it will pick one of their frames at random when it creates them. So the last thing we need to do is make it so we can actually see our last guess. So last guess currently doesn't display, and all we need to do for that is keyboard upon pressing the enter button. We're actually going to get last guess, set its counter, and we're just going to set it to the value or whatever is written in this box. So we're going to get the text. It's going to use the value for it. And there we go. So we go back to our frame editor. We make sure the spawner is inside the jar. And then we just give it a quick test. So we've got our sweets in the jar. You can make these bigger or smaller. It's completely up to you. I'm just going to start off with a guess. And it says wrong. And it indicates to me that it needs to be higher. 87. We're going to try 90. And maybe I'm way out here. 110. We're going to try 100. Nope. We're going to try 98. And there we go. So that's working, and the indicator disappears. It tells us that we are correct. I hope this has been helpful, and that you have lots of fun in class with this or with your friends. And I will see you in the next tutorials always. Bye for now.